We know that Reform is operating with a populist strategy, which essentially to me translates as say the most popular thing, which is often the simplest thing to very nuanced debates, get people on side and then iron through the creases once it's already too late.
Watch the move in this debate. It's the oldest trick in the book. Someone says, stop illegal routes, vet people properly, enforce the law. And the response is not policy. It's a smear. You're weaponizing. You're tarring a whole group. You're creating an enemy. And once that smear lands, they don't have to answer the real question anymore. Who is coming in? How do we know? And what happens when the system is abused? That's what I want you to clock today. Not the shouting. The mechanism. Because the mechanism is how the establishment keeps you quiet.
Now, I would love to ask both of you about, especially you, Laila. So whenever I see you on screen, it's a very weaponized politics. It's about identifying an enemy. If we get X group out, then we will no longer have problems.
What enemy have I identified?
Okay, so talk to me about immigration. So when I have seen you talking about clips where we're hearing the word Ethiopians and racists.
So whenever I see you on screen, it's a very weaponized politics. It's about identifying an enemy. There it is. Translation. You're not allowed to point at the problem because naming the problem makes me uncomfortable. But borders aren't a vibe. They're rules. And if the rules mean nothing, the country becomes a soft target for criminals, for traffickers, for anyone who thinks the UK is basically a free hotel with a legal team included. Now notice what happens next. The argument is supposed to be about illegal entry, illegal routes, unvetted arrivals, basic enforcement. But the other side tries to drag it into, you said Ethiopians, like that magically turns border control into racial hatred. That's not an accident. That's the pivot.
And we're tarring
you heard me say the word Ethiopian and racist?
Yes.
When did you hear me say that?
Rapists.
Rapists, yes, because there have been illegal migrants have been allowed into this country that have gone on to sexually assault girls.
Correct.
Do you condone that?
Why are we tarring the entire Ethiopians? We've just spent the top half of this...
Because it was... Hang on, I'm sorry. But when you allow people, unvetted men, into our country who you have no idea who their history is, and you put them in a town and village, and you subject them to young girls who are walking in the streets and they end up raping a girl, or sexually assaulting a girl, of course I'm going to call it out.
Listen.
Because there have been illegal migrants that have gone on to sexually assault girls. When you allow people, unvetted men, into our country and they end up raping a girl, of course I'm going to call it out. Here's the adult line, and I'm going to say it clearly. Individuals are individuals. No blanket guilt. No demonizing ordinary people. But rules still matter. If you bring people in through illegal routes with no proper identity checks, you are gambling with public safety. That's not hate. That's basic governance. And this is where the debate gets revealing. Instead of saying, fine, let's tighten enforcement, the pushback becomes, but if you mention a nationality, people might think badly of that nationality. Okay, so what's the solution? Lie about reality? Pretend patterns never exist? Pretend the state has no duty to tell the truth when crimes happen?
The association in people's minds is, if I encounter an Ethiopian, this is now the person we're talking about. We just spent the whole top of the show talking about Prince Andrew, and yet I've never heard you say abolish the royals. You can treat it as a case study. So what I'm saying to you is...
The royals are part of Britain.
We are importing rapists and terrorists into this country through our open borders. You cannot deny that. Now, important. That line is heavy, and if you're going to say it, you'd better anchor it to evidence. In this clip, she's talking about instances and the fact we don't know who's arriving. So the Steelman version is simple. Illegal routes create unknown risk. That's the point. And then she drops the question that makes people squirm because it forces a moral boundary. How many rapes is too much for you to say it's not okay? That's the moment. Because the polite class always wants to keep it abstract. Nuance, language, community cohesion. Meanwhile, ordinary families are thinking, my daughter walks home. My wife gets the late train. My town has a hotel full of people nobody can properly verify. And if you even ask about vetting, you get called a racist. That's the whole game. Make the price of honesty so high that everyone stays silent. And silence is convenient. Silence keeps the NGOs funded, keeps the lawyers busy, keeps the media panels feeling morally superior, and keeps politicians dodging accountability. Now watch the part they can't answer cleanly. Do we actually know who's coming in on illegal routes?
Importing rapists and terrorists into this country through our open borders. You cannot deny that. How many rapes is too much for you to say it's not okay? How many rapes would you accept?
This is my question to you, right? We are talking about instances. We know that there are rapists in Britain, right? Already here. You've described them as homegrown rapists before. That is very different.
How do you know that every man crossing that boat is not a rapist or a terrorist? Just to be clear, you don't know. That's the honest answer. You don't know. So any serious country adjusts policy based on that reality. You don't default to trust, you default to verification. If you can't verify, you don't wave people through and hope for the best, because hope is not a border strategy. They've thrown their passports, and once passports are ditched, you've got the perfect loophole. No documents, no confirmed identity, endless claims, endless appeals, endless delay. The system becomes a magnet for people who know exactly how to play it, including genuine refugees, yes, but also economic migrants and potentially worse. Again, individuals are individuals. The point is the state has to be able to tell the difference.
Are they vetted? How do you know?
Because we know that we're talking about instances.
How do you know that every man crossing on that boat is not a rapist or a terrorist? We know that one was a convicted terrorist.
But just to be clear, you don't know.
No, I don't know, but I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they have thrown their passports, they've entered this country illegally, so I will treat them as criminals, yes.
Let me bring Afra in.
Once these people are in the dinghy, they dispose of their documentation in the channel. These people could be doctors. They could also be economic migrants, but they could also be terrorists, and we didn't have any clue whatsoever who they were. That's the cleanest framing in the whole clip. It's not all X are criminals, it's we have uncertainty, so we need control. That's a grown-up argument, and it's exactly why the smear exists, because if you actually debate that point honestly, the public is going to say, yeah, obviously, you can't run a country like this. So why do politicians and certain media types fight this so hard? Because once you admit the obvious, that illegal entry plus no documents equals unknown risk. You're forced to do the next obvious thing. Deterrence, removals, fast decisions, and a clear message that illegal routes don't get rewarded. And that collides with the entire incentive structure we've built.
Once these people are in the dinghy and they're crossing the channel, they dispose of their documentation in the channel as told to by the NGOs in Calais and in Greece where they arrive initially. And let's not forget that our illustrious Home Secretary used to do one of those jobs, and she would provide leaflets, water and clothing to these people and direct them on the best way to enter into the UK and other areas of Europe as they wanted.
Once these people arrive in the UK, it's extremely difficult to get them out due to the ECHR rules. That's the hamstrung part being argued in the clip. The system makes it hard to remove people, which signals to the world that if you make it here, you've basically won. And if that's the signal, the flows don't stop. They scale. And then you get to the piece nobody on the panel wants to say out loud. The public is paying for the whole mess. Housing, policing, courts, appeals, hotels, and yes, prison when things go wrong.
These people. You know, the AK-47 man was given 5 years. He'll be out in 18 months, and at that point his asylum application will continue. And at that stage, I think we've reached the level of ridiculous.
Why should the British taxpayer have to pay for this? It'll cost probably around 100 grand. Even if you disagree with the exact numbers being thrown around in the clip. The direction of travel is obvious. This is expensive, and the bill lands on ordinary Brits who didn't vote for open borders, didn't vote for loopholes, and don't get a say when they're told, be quiet or you're racist. So here's my position. No blanket blame, no demonization, but a country has the right and the duty to control entry. Illegal routes should lead to swift removal. Claims should be processed fast, with real identity checks. and the media should stop acting like asking for enforcement is some kind of moral crime, because the real cruelty is the current system. It enriches traffickers, it risks public safety, it overwhelms services, and it poisons trust between communities, all while politicians point fingers and the broadcasters clutch pearls about tone. Hard truth: if you can't say illegal is illegal, you don't have a border. You have a suggestion. 2 quick questions for the comments. 1. Should anyone who arrives through an illegal route with no documents be automatically refused and removed? Yes or no? 2. Do you think the BBC-style framing here is honest debate or a pressure tactic to shut down enforcement talk? If you want more clips broken down like this, the smear, the pivot, the tell, hit like, subscribe, and drop the next debate I should react to.